Hello everyone, it's Carrie at Inky Bee Journals and Ephemera. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time visiting my channel, hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you've been following me for a while and you're returning, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate everybody. So today we are continuing on with the Florals and Foliage notebook. And we are up to part 2, episode 2. The last video was part 2, episode 1. Now, the reason I've split part 2 into 2 separate videos is because I find when I'm explaining things, sometimes that takes up a bit of time, obviously. And I am here for those of you who are new to the craft and may be learning some of these things for the first time. So I don't want to overwhelm you with too much information at once, and I like to try to be reasonably thorough for you. So I thought splitting it into 2 might be a little bit easier for you. So just to give you a quick recap, this is virtually what we're making. So it is a brad binding method, and it is a little notebook that has a little closure here made with, I've just used a little bit of stick-on Velcro, and it is just stuck onto the back there. And when we open it, we have our little notebook here, and we can use that as per usual. If you want to turn this into a type of journal, you could do that also. And this is the inside of the signature, and you can see this is the other side of the brads here. Now, I have not yet put a pocket in here, but I will get to doing that later, and we will do that with this journal that we're making as well. So without further ado, let's get started. So this is the cover that we made in the last, or the start of the cover that we made in the last video. So it goes along with these instructions, and I will run through these instructions with you. In the last video, I just showed each page individually and gave a few moments for you to screen cap them or write some information down so that you can refer to it in the future if you need to. Go back to it as many times as you like, but I will run through that with you. So it explains how we get these 3 panels, the front, the back and the spine, and how we put it together with the, well, this is the background cover, because we will actually put a picture on the front and on the back. And today we are going to put the liner on, which is why I have this piece here. So we'll get started on this. So I'll just move these over for a moment and I'll run through these with you. So just in case you're having a little bit of trouble understanding these instructions that I created, I'll run through it. So it basically, this method is what I consider the easy or the cheats method. You don't actually have to get yourself a ruler and measure specifically. However, if you would like to be more specific, by all means, grab your ruler and do it that way. But this is supposed to be an easy way of doing it. So if you are new and you're not one of these people who likes having to measure everything, then this might be an option for you. So to get started, we need to make a front and back cover before we do the spine piece. So the front and back cover obviously is these 2 panels here. These 2 panels here. And we need to measure these so that they will actually comfortably fit your signature on the inside. And as you can see, when I place this in, it actually gives, I hope you can see this on the camera, but it actually gives a border at the top, down the side and across the bottom. And the way we measure this, or the way I measure it, is there's two ways you can go about this. If you want to use a ruler, you can specifically measure the width and the height and make notes of that. But all I've done is, when I had my larger piece of cards, my larger piece of cereal box or chipboard or whatever you choose to use, I've just placed it up to the edge of the chipboard like that, and I placed it towards the top so that I had a little bit of a border at the top. And then all I've done is just eyeballing it, is I took a pencil or a pen or something, and I've just done a marking to the side and a marking at the bottom, so that it would, when it's all cut, the border would be about the same size all the way along on those three sides. This side does not need a border because this side will be connecting to your spine area. So when you're putting it on your chipboard of sorts, you would make sure that this folded edge to your signature is right up to the edge of that chipboard. Once you've got that, you can then go to your cutting method and cut down those where you've made those lines or those markings, and you need to cut 2 of those. So where I've got here, measure signature height and width, as I said, you can actually get your ruler and you can measure across like this and like this, and you can note that. So imagining that your width is 5 inches and your height is 7 inches. Then you add approximately 1/8 of an inch to the top and the bottom of the height. So I have a little diagram here. So the top would be here, the bottom would be here, so you add 1/8 of an inch at the top, 1/8 of an inch at the bottom, and then you move to the next part. So you would add 1/8 of an inch up here and 1/8 of an inch down bottom. Then you add approximately 1/8 of an inch to the width, but only to the right hand side, not on the spine side. So you add 1/8 of an inch to this side only, this side only. And the reason we do that, as I said before, because your spine will go on this side, so we don't need to add any extra width there. Then you work out what your math would be. So assuming that our height is 7 inches, we then add 1/8 of an inch to 7 inches and then another 1/8 of an inch to 7 inches. So that would be 7 1/4 inches. And then you do the same for the width. So imagining our width is 5 inches and we add 1/8 of an inch, that makes it 5 inches and 1/8, like that. Keep these in mind, because then you need to make your spine piece. So your spine piece is here in the center. So use the total of the cover height as the spine height. So as you can see on here, the spine in the center is exactly the same height as your front and back covers. So you measure, whatever you measure this to be, your spine has to be exactly the same height. And then the width, cut at, I use 3/8 of an inch. You could make it wider if you choose, but for a signature that is not overly thick like this one, I think 3/8 of an inch is big enough, because I'm not going to be filling these pages with a lot of pockets and ephemera and things, so it's not going to fan out too much. But if you do want to use yours more like a junk journal, you can, and you want to fill these pages a bit more, you might want to make it a bit more than 3/8 of an inch. You might want to make it 1/2 an inch or even bigger, but it depends how much extra space you want to give yourself for the pages to fan out, because as you add things to your pages, it will create dimension, and you need to allow for that dimension by giving yourself some extra space. So assuming you're only putting this one narrow signature in, I'm giving myself 3/8 of an inch. As I said, you can make it larger than that if you want to, and that's just for one signature. For multiple signatures, if you choose to have more than one signature, allow approximately 3/8 of an inch or more if you wish per signature to allow for spacing, no more than 1/2 an inch or so, because you really don't need much more than that for a narrow single signature like this. So as I said, your spine has to be the same height as your front and back, but the width needs to be 3/8 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. Now the cover construction, place down the spine, leaving approximately 1/2 an inch to fold over. Now you can make it a little bit less than 1/2 an inch, or you can make it a little bit more. I generally make it about 1/2 an inch because, and I'll show you why, this is another slap tip I have. This is approximately 1/2 an inch to an inch wide. So if I leave about this much, then when across the top, then when I'm cutting off all of the excess of my larger piece that I've covered it in, I can just use the width of the ruler to cut down the sides to make all the sides about the same. That's the only reason I do that. You can make it wider if you wish, you can make it less if you wish, but I just stick to that basic rule because it's just easier to remember. You won't see, when we put this liner on, you won't see most of this anyway. You'll only see a little border area of that. Then you place each cover down either side of the spine. You must remember to leave approximately 1/8 of an inch in spacing between the spine and the cover pieces, and keep tops and bottoms level all the way across. So what that means is, you can see here that I have space between the spine and the back cover and the spine and the front cover. This is approximately 1/8 of an inch. Now it doesn't have to be exact, but you need to leave that little bit of spacing so that when we are folding these, what you'll do is you'll leave enough space for it to fold without it cracking and without it impeding on the ability for it to fold in half like that. If you are using a super thick cardstock, you will find that it will be more likely to crack than if you are using one that's not too thick. If you are using something to cover it that might have some foiling on the cardstock, or if you're using a decorative scrapbook paper, if you've got something with some foiling on it, you might find, or a paper that is maybe either really thick or something that's got some specialty sort of surface on it, you might find it will be more likely to crack than something that is more smooth and not too thick. So just bear that in mind. If you are using a chipboard of sorts that is thicker than just the cereal weight box that I've used on this, if you are using something like heavyweight Crafter's chipboard, you will find that much thicker than just cereal weight. So the thicker your pieces are, the more spacing you need between your spine and your covered pieces. So just bear that in mind, because if you don't leave enough space, again, when you go to fold it, these pieces will collide too easily and you will more likely get cracking in these areas instead of just fold lines. Because as you can see, there is no cracking through here, and that's what we need to look for. Oh, and this, as I said before, these need to be even all the way across the top and the bottom, because if they are uneven, your book will not be able to stand like that, because, or even like that, because if they're not even, they won't be able to balance themselves. So just bear that in mind. So try and keep it as level as you can. And this is just basically a diagram explaining that you need to keep that spacing, that approximate 1/8 of an inch spacing. Now if you do choose to use a ruler instead of just eyeballing it and guesstimating, if you want to use that term, then you absolutely can. You can use the 1/8 spacing or the 1/8 rule as a basic measurement rule for most of your measuring. But if you don't want to get the ruler out, just roughly work it out by eye and you'll be fine. Okay, so now that we've explained that, we'll put this aside and we'll make a start on putting the inside liner in here. So I've got these pieces here, and I'll just take these apart. So this is just another piece of the cardstock that I have, and I'm going to use this as my liner. Now obviously this is going to be far too big to fit on here alone, so we will need to cut this bit down. And again, I'm going to show you lazy cutting, lazy measuring I should say. So this is how we do our lazy measuring. Now I've just placed this down so that I've got roughly the same border across the top here, and the same, roughly the same width in border here. I'm going to place it down so that I have roughly the same border down the side here. And then I'm just going to use my pencil and I'm just going to eyeball this again, and I'm going to come to this edge here, and I've got this straight again roughly. I'm just going to come to this edge here where the brown stops, not to the end of the lighter cardstock, and I'm just going to go in by approximately 1/8 of an inch. Again, it doesn't have to be specific, and I'm just going to put a mark there, and then I'm going to come down to the bottom corner and I'm going to do the same thing and put a mark about 1/8 of an inch in from the bottom edge of the brown, and put a mark just there, so that when I cut a line this way and I cut a line down this way, this area here will remain big enough to fit in this space. If you want to, you can measure this specifically by getting your ruler and measuring how far across this entire piece is and taking a note of that, and then measuring what this is this way in the height and taking note of that. And then you take those measurements and you take about 1/4 inch off both the height and off the width. And the reason you do that is because it will give you roughly the same size in piece that we are going to end up with by doing the easy measuring method that I just showed you before. So to cut this, I'm just going to use my cutter. Now this is I think they call it a rotary cutter. It has, I'll just show this underneath, I'm not sure if you can see this. There is actually a round blade in under here, and this runs along this metal edge and along this bar here. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide this under this clear piece here, and we're going to line up this marking here that we made. We're going to line up right on the edge of this metal edge here, making sure that this top edge is butted up right against this ridge here, and this is how we keep things nice and straight. And if you look down the bottom, and it might be hard for you to see because I'm out of range a bit, when it's all lined up, it should be fairly straight across the bottom as well. Okay, and I'm just going to run that all the way along. Now, don't throw that out because that's big enough that you can do something with that. So we'll hang on to that piece. And now that we've cut that down on this side, we're going to turn it, and we're going to do the same using this little marking here. We're going to place it back in the trimmer, and we're going to place that little marking right on the edge of the metal edge, just like before, and the top edge here, butt it right up against this ridge here, and you should see that everything is nice and straight. And then we're just going to run this along again. And so we've cut this piece off. Again, this is nice and big, so we'll be able to use this for another project. And once we've done that, we can move the trimmer out the way, and we're left with this. And this now should be the right size to line the inside of our book cover. And that's about right, but you can see that we have about the same border all the way around. It may not be 100%, but that's okay, because we must remember that anytime we are making something handmade, it's never going to be 100% perfect all of the time. And as Cara Renee says, perfection is not a play in the studio, so that applies in my studio too. So don't stress out if it's a little bit uneven in one corner or on one side. You can adjust it a little bit if you want to, but generally that method works reasonably well. So the next thing we need to do is place it down. Now, how do we place it down? We can use double-sided tape, but please remember, sometimes double-sided tape can unstick over time. If you want it for a long period of time, maybe double-sided tape on its own is not going to be the way to go. However, you can use double-sided tape in conjunction with another glue. That may work for you. Also bear in mind that some double-sided tapes can sometimes react to the surfaces in which you're sticking it to. and this can leave a bit of an oily residue or a bit of a black sort of streaky mark and on the surfaces, and that can sometimes ruin the look of your project. So if you don't want that to happen, then consider staying away from the double-sided tape option and go with a glue. So I'm actually going to use glue today. I'm going to use my art glitter glue, and I will put a link in the description box below for you if you are interested in that. You don't have to use the same glue that I'm using. Of course, you can use whatever glue you like, but this is a good all-round glue. It is not to everybody's taste, but if you are looking for a glue, you might want to give this a go. You can also, if you want to, I have some clear glue here, which is fabric glue. You could use a fabric glue if you wish. Just try to remember not to use a glue that has too high of a water content, because you might find, because we are using cardstock and we are using cereal weight box here, you might find that a high water content glue might seep through too much and actually cause it to warp, wrinkle, potentially even tear, and you don't want that to happen to your project. So what we're going to do, just going to take the pin out of my glue. And for those of you who aren't aware, if you are using pins, these look like sewing pins, but if you are using pins in your glue bottle, please remember, if you are using a glue that has any amount of water content in it, please use pins that have stainless steel in them, and not regular sewing pins that are not stainless steel. The reason being because if you keep pins in your glue that is a glue that has water content in it, your pins will rust, and that rust will get into your glue, and that does not, I find it hasn't actually stopped the glue from really working, but it can leave a yucky colour in your glue, and you don't really want that. However, you could use a normal pin in fabric glue because it doesn't have water in it. As far as I know, it doesn't have water in it. So just bear that in mind. Now, I'm just going to run some glue around the edge and all over here, and I'm going to do the same on this part here. And I hope it doesn't dry out too quickly on me, because I do have the air conditioner going in the room, and therefore my glue might want to dry a little bit quicker. So I do apologise if you can hear a bit of a whirring sound in the background of my video, because I do have my air conditioner going in the room. We are still having some crazy weather where I live. We are at the end of winter, and we are having some really crazy winds and storms, and as a result of that, we are having some crazy sound going on outside. We've had our SES guys have been working overtime trying to help those of us who are having trouble with trees falling down. People have had gates and things ripped off their hinges, and people have been losing tiles off their roofs, and some people have had their cars damaged, and so it's been a bit of a scary time. And there's often warnings coming through on my phone telling people to be careful on the roads, and not to go out unless you really need to. So for those who do need to go out, if you happen to be watching this video, please do be careful out there. And for my area, it's not it's normal for my area to have a couple of days of the really bad wind in the windy season, but we're not used to it being quite this bad. So yeah, it's been a bit wild around here. So if you hear any other noises in the background, there is a chance that it is the wind and the rain outside that you hear. So I do apologise if that's distracting for you. So now we're just going to turn this over and place this down. Now, if you see the table or the camera wobble, I do apologise. I usually need to stand up to do this so that I can see what I'm doing properly. And I'm just going to place this down as evenly as I can. Like that. And then press that down. And then I'm just going to grab my bone folder and I'm just going to go over that. Press that down. You may have some seepage like I just have. And I'm just going to try and press all of this down as much as I can with my cloth, just to catch any seepage as it happens to come out, and go over this with my bone folder. The aim is to get some good stick between all of your surfaces with the glue, as much as you can manage without tearing your pieces. And it helps the glue to spread out a little bit as well. Now, I'm going to use this bone folder, which comes as part of this set here, and I will link this in the description box if you are interested. And I'm just going to bring myself towards the table again with the chair, so I'm sorry if the camera wobbles again. And we need to remember that we have our spine here, and that this whole piece will need to fold in half again. So how we do that is we need to run the bone folder. Now, if all you have is something like this or something like this, you can run these pieces down here. Or if you have one like this, you can run this down here. I have been finding that using this one helps because it's about the same width as this gap, this 1/8 inch gap that we've put between our pieces. So I'm just doing that, and I'm going to turn my piece and I'm going to find the other crease, which is just there. And we're just going to gently press in there till we are getting that crease line appearing. We need to be careful that we don't tear through our liner piece. But what we're doing is we're helping to stick it down and break down those fibres so that it's going to allow our book to fold. So we can just gently rock to help those fibres to break down and loosen up. And we'll do the same with this side. And there, it's virtually done. So if you do find that there is a little bit of cracking happening, and look, sometimes this can happen, but generally if you're not too heavy-handed and you are using something that is not too thick, it's less likely to crack. But if it does crack, depending on how the crack has occurred, sometimes you can just get a little bit of your glue, stick it under the where it might have cracked and just stick it back down. Sometimes that works. Other times you might find you need to put something over the crack just to reinforce it. We'll get to sorting that sort of thing out another day. But as you can see, this is folding much better now. So we've virtually finished this part. We have our cover made inside and out. So as long as you're making sure everything is nice and stuck at the top and the bottom here and through the center, you shouldn't have really any bubbling happening anywhere. If you want to take this opportunity to put some pockets in, you can do that now, or you can do it after if you like. So with all of that done, in the next video we will start putting the brad binding in. We'll put the holes in, and the brads will put holes in the spine of this, the signature, and the spine of the cover, and we'll put the brads in that way, and we'll look at covering this. So if you liked this video, please consider giving me a thumbs up, and until next time, thank you so much for watching. Please stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time. Bye.